Danny Shaw is a police and crime and justice commentator. He's a former advisor to the former Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. Danny, thank you for joining me today. We've obviously got those charges, and you know better than anyone how careful we need to be about that, but clearly the big issue of safety on our public transport network being debated, and rightly so, in Parliament at the moment. What do you make of what the Home Secretary, and indeed the Shadow Home Secretary and other MPs as well, have been saying in the last sort of half an hour, 40 minutes?
Well, I thought both Shabana Mahmood and Chris Philp were very measured in their comments and were mindful that there are legal proceedings now underway and that the suspect is facing charges not just in relation to this attack, but also in relation to an earlier incident in southeast London at Silvertown, where it's alleged he attempted to murder someone. And we know that Cambridgeshire police are now also looking into incidents earlier in the day on Saturday and on the Friday evening, where a man was seen brandishing a knife, and in one case a 14-year-old boy was stabbed, though his injuries were not serious. So I think that all begs the question about the police response to the incident in London, what was happening in those 18 hours between that incident at Silvertown and the knife attack. Was that suspect identified? Were attempts made to locate him? That's a very serious stabbing. This isn't just a kind of routine punch up on a train station. This is obviously a very serious incident indeed, if it's led to an attempted murder charge. So I think some serious questions for the Met Police there, and also for Cambridgeshire Police about the efforts they made to track down and locate the suspect before it's alleged that he went on board that train. Now, I don't think either Chris Philp or Shabana Mahmood really addressed those points because they're very mindful of legal proceedings. But I think they talked about the wider issues of tackling knife crime. Shabana Mahmood saying there has been some positive progress on the figures, but knife crime is too high, absolutely too high. And Chris Philp calling for more stop and search in particular and greater use of technology.
And speaking about Chris Philp, we can take a look at what he said in response to the Home Secretary. This is within the last 40 minutes in the House of Commons.
Our thoughts are with the victims of this appalling attack and their families, as the Home Secretary quite rightly said. I join her in paying tribute to the emergency services who responded so fast, and to the brave interventions by members of the public and the train staff that prevented an even worse tragedy from occurring. They are truly heroes. This attack has horrified and shocked the whole nation. People simply travelling by train were indiscriminately attacked. The horror the passengers experienced will likely stay with them forever. Anthony Williams has now been charged. As the Home Secretary said, he had been involved in previous incidents in Peterborough, and in the early hours of Saturday morning was also allegedly involved in an attack on the Docklands Right Railway in London. Will she confirm, as I've been told, that police in London knew Williams' identity following that? And if so, were Cambridgeshire police informed so they could track him down? In essence, I'm asking, were there any opportunities to have prevented this from occurring?
And Danny, that speaks to what you've been saying just a few minutes ago, but Shabana Mahmood essentially said she wasn't going to answer those questions because they come out in the fullness of time. Was she right to do so, or do you think there's more information she could have given in the House of Commons on this?
I'm sure the briefings that the Home Secretary has had go well beyond the information that she imparted on the floor of the House of Commons.
Of course, yeah.
I'm pretty sure, as you will know, Peter, that ministers are privy to a lot of information. But I think she's right not to get into that. But I think that doesn't mean that the Met Police hasn't got some questions to answer. If Chris Philp is right, and I'm sure for him to say that, he must be fairly confident that police in London knew the identity of the suspect in that earlier attack in Silvertown in southeast London. Remember that this happened in the early hours of Saturday morning, and then the train attack happened at around about 7:30 p.m. So there's a lot of time. If the Met Police did know the identity of this person, to make attempts to track him down, were other police forces informed? And I think we need to get some more clarity on that. definitely.
Thank you, Danny. We will return to that. There are lots of unanswered questions here. I want to talk now to Tina McKay. Tina is a TSSA union organiser. TSSA, of course, the independent trade union for the transport and travel industries. Tina, thanks for your time this afternoon. Tell me from your perspective how your members are feeling at the moment, especially those who are working on trains, who have seen the horrific attack that's happened over the weekend. And I know that you have campaigned, in fact, way before this, back in September 2024, you were campaigning for better safety on trains. Do you think you're going to be listened to properly now?
Well, I'd just like to say that first and foremost, our thoughts are with the victims and the families and all who were affected by this incident that did occur. Yes, you are right that TSSA has been campaigning on not just safety, but we've been actually trying to campaign as well on increasing funding for British Transport Police. What we've been trying to look at have been preventative measures. We've been calling out the risks that our members have been facing on a daily basis. Just earlier this year, we launched a report on violence against transport workers. And some of the statistics that we came across were just eye-watering. The amount of abuse that people are contending with on a daily basis is just unacceptable. And it's really sad when you listen to what people are saying, which is that it's becoming so commonplace that it's just something that they take on the chin. And nobody should have to contend with any sort of abuse at work. But when you're starting to see such appalling levels of violence and people being attacked with weapons, racial harassment, sexual abuse, all sorts of unacceptable behaviour that staff are contending with, it's just really unacceptable, and more does need to be done.
And it is unacceptable, as you say. What do you think it says that it takes an incident like this for, yes, us in the media, we're guilty of it too, of not talking about it properly. We're probably guilty of being a bit sniffy about train drivers earning lots of money, the ASLEF ones who negotiated that settlement. What do you think it says that actually for the government, the authorities, the police to sit up and take notice of this, it takes an attack of this type?
Well, I can't comment on what the government and the police and the media, what interests them or what motivates them. Our priority is making sure that the transport system is safe for both workers and for the passengers. And what I would say is that we have long campaigned at TSSA for a fully funded, publicly owned transport system that is run for the people and not for profit. And we firmly believe that if people were put at the forefront of any sort of transport network, we would see a safer transport network.
Just on that note, sorry to interrupt you, Tina, but if safety is not improved, will you be looking at possible union action to make the government listen?
Well, I can't speak on what our members would be willing to do at this point, but I mean, it is something that is a key priority in the talks that we are having. And what we're really looking at is trying to get people to move from the reactive to the preventative. So fund British Transport Police more. Make sure that there's no funding shortfall, which we are seeing at the moment, which is actually risking jobs in British Transport Police, therefore making prevention a little bit less. So fund them properly. Make sure that they can respond to incidents quickly and effectively. We also need tougher enforcement and real consequences for those who do intimidate or threaten transport workers and passengers. Just to highlight, there is actually a law that's specific for people who attack retail workers. We've been campaigning for a change to make sure that there's a specific one for people who are abusive and violent on the transport network. So we want to see that as well. But also what we want, we've also got demands as well of the train companies and transport providers to end things such as lone transport staffing. You know, that creates a vulnerability, and unstaffed stations provide conditions for intimidation and violence. A visible staffed presence is one that does deter. So let's create more of a safe network. Let's make sure that staff are safe and passengers are safe. and that we have a transport network that everybody wants to use.
Tina, I know you've got to go. Thank you for your time. That's Tina McKay there, who is from the TSSA union. She's a union organiser